So I'm an architect and I know not much about water. And this is a picture of our office. When you arrive, and if we have the chance to collaborate with you all, then you would be asked to take off your shoes. And this is speaking very much about the individuals behind what it takes to do a project, but also about common endeavor. So water is the reason why cities exist. They are almost found everywhere where you can find fresh water for drinking and where you can find a lake or river or the seas for trade. And commerce and exchange has fashioned our coastline. This is in Lisbon, where once upon a time this was the point of departure for the great explorer to the America. Then it became the riverfront of trade and exchange and industries, and often it's a situation that we find in all of our cities. In Lisbon, the riverfront was cut by train lines that were separating the commerce area from the city. And in the area we live in the era we live in now, in this post-industrial era, everywhere cities around the world are looking to reclaim those lost spaces, because cities are now about quality of spaces and quality of living and about exchange between people. And water does that, has the power to bring people together and to make them exchange and get closer to themselves. So this is a building we completed in 2017. It's the Mat Museum in Lisbon by the river Tagus. And it's very much the culmination of the regeneration of the riverfront of Lisbon. And what we saw is that it was as important to make a connection with the river, and the steps to the river was going to be as important as the building inside, which was a gallery space. We used the water as a plane to bounce back, as a plane to reflect and bounce back the water inside the building and get into the depth of the sunken gallery that are below. In bouncing back on the facade, we use water to make it a beautiful thing, which we have not been really talking about today, how water is just a simply enjoyable, beautiful thing that we can play with, articulate lights, and make us enjoy the moment. And this became the very basis of a very sound, sustainable strategy for the building, where we bring daylight in and LED views, and where we use the basement galleries that are sunken to benefit from free cooling from the thermal ground. And we saw instinctively that this place in Lisbon was to be a democratic place for exchange, for the public to meet and enjoy the view of the river. So we put the building low so that the view of the rivers remained for the entire city, which lies behind. But before all, this project was about creating a public space, and where that has had this power of really dragging people all together and exchanging, because cities today are about that, are about exchanging, and that's how, through communication and change encounter, that you drive change. We've done the exact same thing in London at the Victoria and Albert Museum, where here we renegotiated the relationship between the city and the street and the museum. So in a way, we took the museum onto the street and we took the street onto the museum. We created an outdoor room, which is a sort of an outdoor room of the museum, which is carbon-free, and placed below ground a gallery for exhibitions. We spent 2 years and a half doing research on ceramics to be able to create, which is one of the reasons why the museum exists, to be able to create a porcelain floor that was produced in the Netherlands. So all that to make a point that architecture is also about innovation and research, that you can do things that you have never done before and experiment in that field too. So those are the 2.5 years of research. And this is the gallery below ground, which is, again, the basic of a very sustainable strategy where we use thermal mass to cool the building. We bring daylight in. We collect water, obviously, from the roof and the surfaces. We enhance biodiversity with green roofs elsewhere, etc., etc. This is probably the most sustainable development we've done so far because it's a piece of city itself. Here we really did best practice on everything, collected rainwater, enhanced biodiversity, encouraged people to come with public transport or by bike. We let the facade is controlling thermal gain and letting daylight in, and the structure is in timber. All that to make an exemplary building, which was then rewarded by a BREEAM outstanding accreditation. But this should really be the norm now, and we really want to go further. And this was a sort of exercise that we have done, a sort of attempt to go further into that debate and engage with people. This was a proposal that we did for the pavilion in Milan of 2015, I think, where the theme was food for the Universal Expo, and we wanted to give the visitor a sort of visceral understanding of the quantity of water that was used to produce the food, which and then we called water the nature silent currency. With this project, we wanted to reveal and touch people, which the same way that we have done with our other project at Lisbon, where we really engage with people, or at VNA, and really engage with them in a way to make them realize the preciousness of the resource, and for the pavilion to become a place of exchange between brands, businesses, and everyday life, and or use of water. Everyone would share the experience online, and everyone would then commit to change at their own scale. So the pavilion was a simple water container that people would cross through, and the 80,000 liters of water would represent more or less the amount that one would use to produce 33 hamburgers. So we transformed that data into a sort of visceral experience that people would perceive and realize into something that was palpable. So you would understand the volume, and there was a very sort of uplifting experience of crossing the pavilion that would engage you to commit to change as you exit the pavilion. We've been absolutely passionate with this notion of water and how it touches everything since then. And we're now working increasingly in Paris, which I had a slide about, but it's gone, where basically the slide was, I just have to describe it now instead, was a demonstration that happened at Place de la République in Paris, where for for Paris 2021, everyone took off their shoes and left them on the street as a demonstration of the engagement of the individual into the debate. And that's going back to the first slide I showed you, that for us it's about how we can engage with people, and as architects we know how to touch them, how to get to them, how to bring them together. And I'm here today to understand what is the right message to give them. Thank you.